This video is for Chapter 5, Section 5.3 for the activity set Computing with Fraction Bars. We'll use fraction bars for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Here's an example of adding with fraction bars. You can see the two addends, 3/12 and 1/3, are lined up. They don't necessarily need to overlap like that. And there's a sum bar that shows their total shaded area of 7/12. So, for example, in number 1, we ask you to do some addition and complete equations. So, for example, we have 1/3 plus, we need to name that bar, equals what? And so you need to add the third sum bar here. Then we look at a difference example, and notice that for the difference bar, first you have your minuend bar, then you have your subtrahend bar, the one you're subtracting, and those aren't staggered. We're not looking at the total shaded area, we're looking at the difference in shaded area. And then we finally have our difference bar. So in question 2, the bars are lined up, and again we ask you to complete equations and put the third difference bar there and figure out the resulting fraction equation. Now we move to the idea of common denominators, and we saw this in activity set 5.2 as well. So for example, I have here 2/3 and 1/4. If I split the 2/3 bar each piece into 4 parts and the 1/4 bar each piece into 3 equal parts, then they each have 12 parts, a common denominator. You can see here that we have 1/4 is 1 times 3 over 4 times 3. We're multiplying by 3 over 3 here. And you can see our fraction equivalence in that way. So for example, if I'm adding without a common denominator, I can still line up and see my answer 11/12, but I can also complete my equation with a common denominator and see more clearly that 8/12 plus 3/12 is 11/12. Similarly with the difference bar, this is a little harder to see. I have 2/3 minus 1/4 is 5/12. It's a little harder to see that that 5/12 exactly lines up. But if I convert my 2/3 to 8/12 and I convert my 1/4 to 3/12, then it's easier to see the 5/12 in the difference. And so in number 3, we ask you to mark pairs of bars to start off with to find a common denominator. So you're given pairs of bars, and that's true for A, B, and C. This is just one pair. And then we continue in number 3, asking you to add each pair and subtract each pair. Then we move to multiplication. You can determine 1/3 times 1/6 by splitting each part of a 1/6 bar into 3 equal parts. So here's my 1/6 bar, and I want 1/3 of it. So I split everything into 3 equal parts, and then I take 1/3 of the shaded amounts. So I have 1/18. Now suppose I wanted to look at 1/3 of 4/5. So my second factor is not a unit fraction here because I have 4 in the numerator. So I do the same thing. I split each into 3 pieces because of the 1/3, and then I take that 1/3 of each of the shaded parts, and I get a total of 4/15 as my solution. So in number 4, we ask you to do this sort of work, splitting bars into 2 parts, and then looking at what happens with improper fractions, and then splitting bars into 3 parts and 4 parts to show multiplication. Then we move to division. We'll use the measurement concept of division. If I look at 1/2 divided by 1/6, I can think how many 1/6 can I subtract off of 1/2, or how many times does 1/6 go into 1/2. And you can see here that 1, 2, 3, 1/6 goes into 1/2, but a second view is to line up bars. So 1/6, a second 1/6, and a third 1/6. Now, sometimes you don't have a whole number quotient. So for example, when we look at 5/6 divided by 1/3, we see here in this diagram that 1/3 goes into 5/6 2.5 times. In that second view, 1/3 goes in once, twice, and then you can see only a half of the 1/3 fits. And so we ask you to do some division examples in question 5. And then finally, for a little fraction fun, we ask you to do all 4 operations. We give you 10 fractions, and we give you an addition, a subtraction, a multiplication, and a division blank equations. And you need to pull your fractions in and use each one of them once and see if you can create combinations that work. For example, I could have 1/6 plus 2/6 is 1/2. I could fill in this, but then can you do the others? I hope you have fun with activity set 5.3 and how useful it is to use fraction bars to do straightforward fraction computations.